So welcome to QA as a career path, evolution from an industry entry point. I am Bryce Broderick, and this is my 5th year in the game industry. And throughout my career, I've been in a few different positions, but mostly I've had a through line of QA work. So starting from testing mobile games in college, to arcade games, to party games, and to now AAA development on an action game known as Destiny 2 at Bungie. I am a test engineer now, and all the skills that I'm going to be sharing, we're both going to be sharing in this talk, I've used personally in my career to set up my different progression. So it's all going to be applicable skills, I hope, to all of you.
And hello, I'm Christopher Rios, and currently I'm the Raids and Dungeons test lead over at Bungie. I started off working in mobile tech, where I got to test out some mobile apps, then later became a product specialist within that field. And then I started to take a lot of the knowledge and skills that I learned from that to apply to game dev. And I'm running around the 4-year-plus mark right now at Bungie, and it's been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, so as you can tell from this picture from 1960, we're a bit of a dynamic duo. Maybe not that much, but we do employ a people-first approach at Bungie for the QA field, where we actually work with our functional testers to ensure that they are working on their career growth and the things that they want to achieve in the discipline. It's not just a revolving door of testers, it is us individually working with each to make sure that they are working on that skill progression we're going to be talking about in this talk, and they're achieving the growth opportunities that they want to work towards. And this actually goes with different things like giving them tools to succeed and ensuring one-on-one contact so that they are working in the right ways. And that actually touches on a lot of the agenda of the talk today that we're going to go through, which is we're going to start with how the QA career is changing from that industry entry point to something that could sustain a long-term career. Then we're going to go into why you would consider a QA career. Why would you like to do game dev in QA your entire career? And we're going to present you with 3 clear benefits that we've used in our career as well as other professionals in the industry. Then we're going to go into sustaining that career. If you get a job in testing, you start, what is going to keep you going in the field? What is going to progress you to that next step? And we're also going to give you tools for finding your correct job and what you would like to do in the industry.
Yeah, and I'm really excited for this too, because we're going to be talking about some of our stories of how we got here. We're going to talk about some of the things that we have done specifically at Bungie as well that kind of correlate to the many talking points here, and then wrap things up to where you feel like you have a lot of resources and guidance to take the next step if you see that this is a really fun thing to do for you.
Yeah, so to start off, what do I actually mean when I say QA as an entry point? What is the misconception in the industry right now is that the primary purpose of QA is to go into the discipline, earn skills, and then transfer out. It's only a stepping stone in the industry. It is not something that can fulfill that 20-year career in game dev. So there are different opportunities for growth that lots of people are not seeing at a perception level right now. This is kind of theorized due to the low barrier of entry of the discipline, where QA doesn't require a lot of technical skills to get in or shipped game experience, which I would argue is a strength of the discipline, but this can lead to a lot of people wanting to do the work, and when there's a large supply of people that want to do work, companies can devalue the work that we do. And the value is apparent to us that work in the field, but this perception needs to change. And so lots of companies feel they don't need to invest in the discipline because they can just get more people at this base level. And that's where we see this lack of upper mobility and low pay. It doesn't have to be this way. And as you can see, some people think, oh, I'll just get into QA and then I'll be the director of the next AAA blockbuster. It doesn't exactly work like that, and it doesn't need to.
Yeah, as we get into kind of just how the perception has affected the discipline, because like Bryce was talking about, there's a conception where it's you just go in there, you run into a wall while you're playtesting for 700 hours, and then it's okay, what do I really do from here? Is there really any growth opportunity in this field? And there is. And the spaces for those exist. And that's what we want to bring visibility about too, because we see that a lot of times that folks go into the QA career path, they stay for like maybe like a year or so, and then they just start to transition out to like different disciplines. And that's not to say that you shouldn't be transitioning to other disciplines, but we want to make sure that there is that visibility for that sustainable career path. So instead of developing out of the discipline, we get to show you the benefits of developing in the discipline to where you have that long-term like sustained growth. And the really cool thing about this too is that the discipline has been evolving. It does continue to evolve, and it's not so much anymore of the perception of, okay, QA just kind of just like looks at like the end product and they just like help us like close the project. We're at the beginning of the project. We add that value at the beginning of the project for the entire completion of it by creating these quality systems and becoming a force multiplier for the teams. And we're going to be touching on that point a little bit. So force multiplier, that's going to be the key word in a lot of this.
Yeah, so if you wonder how we stand on this discussion, everyone in QA is a game developer. And you know who said that? Cade 6, and that is canon now. So, I mean, don't challenge me on that because I don't think I got legal sign-off. But anyway.
Narrative is going to yell at us.
What I want to touch on is just that QA is being included in more facets of production because people see the value. Just at Bungie, we have all these specifications of QA that can nurture your interests and give you an equal seat at the table of all of these different disciplines. It's not so much now where we are attached to the end, as Krios is saying. We are actively in from pre-production to ship. And all of these different places are seeing the value, and it's expanding out. I've seen it at other places other than Bungie, but this is just at Bungie, all the different specifications you can go into. And this actually touches on one of our first major benefits of working in QA, which is the flexibility of it. QA is a really unique where you don't need the technical experience to create assets in order to meaningfully contribute to different work. You can actually do it with the interest to explore it. So you don't need that technical expertise when other disciplines you generally need enough technical experience to create an asset. That's not the case in QA. Intro knowledge and interest is really helpful for the work that we do. So learning how a system works and adding that to your core QA responsibilities will create really important input that you can work with others to affect the production. And this is really allowing the disciplines to work on that creative aspect while you are ensuring the quality of the products they create. And this actually gives you a really unique ability to explore within the QA field. So if you have other interests in different disciplines, you don't need to transfer out of QA to explore those. You can actually meaningfully contribute to all of those products while still being in the QA field. So you can nurture all the different interests that you have and work in QA your entire career.
Yeah, and the key word for like this slide in particular is curiosity, because curiosity, especially as you're starting out in the discipline and growing within that discipline, that's going to be the big propeller in your advancement into the career, because curiosity is going to spark your interest in exploring these problem spaces. It's really going to have you engaged in working with people and really like diving into like unique solutions to creative and complex problems. Curiosity is going to be like the biggest part in that.
So a way that I've actually used this in my career is when I worked on the Jackbox Party Pack 8 and the game Weapons Drawn. I came into Jackbox with a screenwriting degree. I studied screenwriting in school. And this was something that really interests me at Jackbox because it is a very narrative-focused company. You know, we have our different narrators and stuff like that and jokes. And so it's very dialogue-focused, and I had a big interest in that. And when I was kind of digging around in dialogue tables and trying to learn these different things, writers took notice of my interest, and we worked together in a technical way to learn the software that they were using. So then I was able to apply that interest and that new technical work to my QA work, where now I was looking for more meaningful results in test cases, and I was finding fixes and bugs much more streamlined. It was making the writers' jobs much easier. And this led to more collaboration in the future. where I was actually able to work with the quality of the narrative content coming out, as I was now a point of contact for that kind of work. And this is all within QA. But I did eventually even write on a game because I was working this closely with narrative. So if you ever stab someone in Weapons Drawn, you can thank me a little bit for it.
Yeah, now I get to talk a little bit about how I came into the career and how I had a little bit of that flexibility as well. Because when I first started off at Bungie specifically, I started off at testing the strikes and the public events, if you're familiar with Destiny 2, but a lot of the open world activities, a lot of the activities that you launch into. And during that time, I saw a really interesting area of investment, which is typically the rewards that you get, the achievements that you earn, the player pursuit of things, and the quests that you engage in. And I saw that that was an opportunity that I was really curious in. And with that curiosity, I remember going to my test discipline manager and talking to them about, oh, I really want to dive more into this space and just how to explore the systems with it, how to debug them, how to see how the things are made and the problem spaces for it. And that's what the curiosity led me to, is to start to build that understanding of the systems that the content designers use and learning their workflows and how we can benefit the ways of reducing the amount of bugs that we find, or building runbook strategies for our live support or during the development of our game. And that's where it's we get into the nuanced understanding of it, to where you can really apply and start to see in real time your impacts to the game, and then being able to master that understanding as well, to where you can start to improve the efficiency of the development of the content by making it easier, more efficient, and less work overall to start building these systems for it. And that leads us into career benefit number 2, player advocacy, which is one of our personal favorites for this. And Brett and I are going to be able to talk about a lot about this, to where we got to talk about some of the quality systems that we were able to implement in some of our testing at Bungie. And when we get into player advocacy, we really get to explore the player lens a lot more with it and bring that player lens into the project itself at the very beginning of it. So we get to work with our discipline peers to start to define these unique experiences that we want to have players engage in. And we get to not only verify that the thing is being built and that it works, but we get to validate it as well. Are we building the right thing for it? And starting to build qualitative metrics around those things of not only just saying yep, we fixed 1 trillion bugs, this is perfect, but what those trillion bugs entail to the overall experience of it. If you're making a hard encounter, are the things increasing the difficulty of it? Are the combatants engaged? Are you feeling pressured in multiple aspects of the fight? Things like that, those are the experiences that we want to advocate for as we're building the content and providing that unique lens for it. And you might have seen this popular video before of a very, very classic example of someone building something with a specific intent in mind, and then someone else being able to add that unique perspective, that unique lens to how players can approach these problem spaces for it. And that's exactly one of the reasons why we're here, to help provide that additional perspective for our content development. Because implementation is one thing, but being able to validate that implementation is a whole separate thing altogether, and we add the value for that. And as we start to build the confidence for the decisions, for the player, we really get to explore these quality systems to where we get to align on a lot of these things with our cross-discipline peers and, again, build these quality systems. And what we're going to be talking about specifically in a moment here is that for Raids and Dungeons, which Bryce was also on my team during that time, where we got to work on Crota's End together for our content. So we're going to be able to talk about kind of just the explorations of building a quality system to ensure that we're meeting the challenge bar for it. We heard the community that they want the challenge. And I think we were able to deliver it. I think Joe Blackburn, our prior game director, he made a funny tweet of Crota just doing a deadlift squad. It's yeah, he went to the gym for sure to make sure that there was a good challenge being presented to players. And Bryce Bryce is able to talk a lot about this because he was part in being able to refine and develop this quality system that we have been using, which we dubbed Fulcrum, which is just a hardcore audience of players within the company that we get to come together for a playtest ritual to where we validate those experiences.
Yeah, so as Krios mentioned, this Fulcrum was like a collaboration between QA and design to understand what a player means really when they say what is hard. Like if this is hard, what do they mean by that, and how do we use design ideas to enhance that experience? So in the place of Crota, we were looking to make it much harder because the original one was kind of a pushover. You could solo it in Destiny 1. We didn't want to carry this along to Destiny 2. We wanted to present a new challenge. But we wanted to do this with mechanics. We didn't want to just boost the difficulty of all the enemies, and then, that's not really challenging the player in meaningful ways. So what we did was we started with sourcing the people that we wanted to challenge, which was these high-skilled players that are used to highly individual play, where they don't actually need their teammates to succeed. They can do things like soloing dungeons or even low-manning raids. So once we sourced this pool of people, we presented a simple design idea to challenge the way that they play the game, which was, what if you have to play hot potato while moving through a raid? And in this situation, it's immediately contrasting how they like to play, where they have to actively work with their teammates to succeed. And once we found the ways that they were failing, we could track these ways. So all these different situations they were getting themselves into, we could track how they're failing, if it is frustrating or fun, and if it is challenging in an engaging way. And once we kind of saw these different things in the playtest, we could enhance these experiences. So what if we threw a trap here? Would that frustrate them? Would that be really fun? And it really allowed us to get on the same understanding between QA and design, so we could start making those design decisions to enhance that difficulty we were achieving. So finally, we really dug into this, and I felt that we made a lot of good design decisions, and we validated them right through these different play tests to make sure that the player was having a good experience. And as Krios said, I think that we achieved that. Crota was really well received in Destiny 2, and it was much, much harder in meaningful ways to our player base.
Yeah, an example for this as well is that for design and QA and all the disciplines that come together, we come together into the room and we define, okay, we want this experience to require a lot more co-op collaboration to go through the encounter space. Design gets to really enforce the idea, and they get to implement the idea. And when it comes into like the QA role in all this too, and how we build these quality systems, is that we start to analyze the player trends of how this group of Fulcrum is going through the content, even outside of Fulcrum too, right? To where we start to see what types of player behaviors and player cohorts are going to be engaging in this type of content, and how they can circumvent it. And I know Bryce was able to find a lot of opportunities during the raid too, where it's just yeah, I could still solo this, for example, and find a complete unique way to go through the content of it, right? So Bryce was really able to have that provide that additional player lens and that perspective, being able to analyze the trends that we were seeing in our playtest to help refine and accomplish the goal that all of us set out to have.
Yeah, and this kind of goes into our third QA benefit, which is cross-discipline collaboration. QA is in an interesting spot where everything we touch and everything we will be applying our work to will be other disciplines' content. We don't work in a box, and this is unique because other disciplines generally have to do specific collaboration. Maybe you're a designer and you're taking some audio and you're putting it into your encounter, and that's kind of a one interaction that you do. But for QA, it happens all the time because everything we're touching is other people's assets. So this allows constant communication with different departmental leads. And if you ensure that this communication is direct, succinct, and effective, it will establish a trust that is really important in taking that next step from testing to quality management. And this forms into super important production work. So as I kind of mentioned, the unique impact that we define with this trust is what we best define it as is that quality management. So instead of verifying the completed work as it comes out, you are impacting the creation by managing the quality of what's being created. Bungie actually does this at a studio level, where we have a body of QA in different disciplines that all dictate what is going into a certain release. So we'll assign risk to all work. We will advocate for fixes or different things that will be fixed based on the trust that we've been given from other disciplines. And this actually makes it so that there's much more ability for the disciplines to focus on creation, and then we can make sure they're hitting their quality standards based on our judgment and trust that we've gained. A good example of this I'm showing on the screen right here is the Spire the Watcher dungeon. We found an out-of-environment issue where there was this really big flash of light that was coming very suddenly. I've slowed it down here, but that is generally something we wouldn't fix. It's out of environments not many people are going to hit. But we, in QA, identified it as a photosensitivity risk. So when we did that identification, we were able to advocate for it and get it fixed when generally something like that may not be fixed.
Yeah, and I would say for a lot of this too, it goes into the topic of the force multiplier aspects of development, where you're really engaging in like these teams and you're being able to build up that trust that Bryce was talking about of how you go through risk escalation, how you go for player advocacy, and seeing the real-time impacts of that is all about being a force multiplier for the team, for the project, and for all the experiences that you're making. And yeah, now we get to talk about the QA job crash course. So we talked about a lot of the benefits in this. We gave a perspective of our stories and how we do things in development. And now we get to talk about okay, how do I start in this? What does the career path really entail and look like in this? And we get to start to explore like how to begin that train for it, of how you can start to really foresee the future of not only just like the first and second year, but how you go through the different positions in QA, and starting to see that a lot of the aspects of career development, you can start building now for it. You can start to build up that foundation for it. And for some of the following examples in this, we can think about it as you're going into, let's say, an associate tester role, you might have the opportunity to start to own something. And that's going to be the recurring theme here, is that ownership is going to be really powerful in this. Whether it is owning a small feature, let's say like one encounter inside a raid or a dungeon, or you get to own the entire feature itself and say, okay, I'm going to own all the encounters for this. Or you can say, I'm going to own all the raids and dungeons in this case. And that's how you can start to build up the ownership of those aspects. And you can see, like the flow chart of this, is that we go through testing the product. We start to familiarize ourselves with the content to become that subject matter expert in it. And that's how you start to become that point of contact. You get to build up the relationship with your cross-discipline peers, and you can start to have those reports built in. You can really start to define and to showcase the quality and the trends of how the project is going and start to manage it a lot more. And through the cycle of ownership, you're really taking advantage of 4 unique things. You're taking advantage of the planning aspect of it. How do you plan for the coverage from the beginning to the end of the project? And then you start to go into the execution of it. Is that you got your plan, you put it on your notebook, and now you want to execute it. You want to bring it to reality and just start to provide work items and actionable things to start to do through those milestones, through the development of the project for it. And when you start to do that, you have the opportunity to analyze, saying, okay, how did these things go once I implemented it in, once I saw the results of it from the execution, and then you start to iterate on it. That cycle continues endlessly. It continues for every single piece of work that you do, and it demonstrates the horizontal growth that you get to achieve as you're going through this. I know for a lot of the things that I've done on Raids and Dungeons, when I started off as an associate tester on the team, one example was owning like parts of the secrets in Vault of Glass of how you achieve the weapon and the weapon catalyst, and started to own that system for it to where we get to really define the bug outputs of things if we're building the right experiences for the players in mind, keeping the secrecy intact, keeping it fair, and really correlating our goals to the actual outputs of the project, and being able to loop those conversations in with the feature owners for the project, the designers, the engineers, the artists, the audio team, the VFX team, and everyone. And that's how you really start to build up that trust and become that point of contact.
Yeah, so as Krios is talking about, this skill progression is really important for all of your expanding out in the discipline. So order to hit this, sometimes the company that you choose will be really beneficial to starting that skill progression and then keeping it going. So I've designed this tool. This is my example. You can take a picture if you'd like. We're going to tell you how to set up your own. But basically, this keyword tool helps you find if a company is right for you and it will be good for your skill progression, where it actually identifies based on common language in things like job descriptions, what it hints at how companies treat QA, and if that aligns with your goals and values for the discipline. So this will actually, how you set this up is that you can start with what's important to you in QA. Write all of this down. Put in your goals, put in how you want to work, and then condense this to the common terminology, the keywords. Once you condense this down, it makes it very easy to compare it to job descriptions, to score, and see if this job is right for you. Is this hitting all of those important aspects of QA work in your personal aspect? And once you can do this, you can actually use this for a cover letter. So you have already what is important to you and what is important to the company. If it aligns, throw it in the cover letter, bring it up in an interview. And of course, the last step is dominate. Dominate everything in your path. Also, what's important for advocating for yourself in different ways is to know your unique QA impact and articulate that. How do I articulate my specific impact? This is another thing that you can use to show that in what we call a mission statement. So the QA character sheet will help you find your unique impact in that mission statement. It will tell companies what I can do that I have not been taught. What can I do that are soft skills that are really important to the work that QA does? And the character sheet will help you market all of your goals and your soft skills in a bite-sized form. That way you can kind of use it for the interview or cover letter of your choice. This is what mine kind of generated out, was I test games to this statement. This is a bite-sized picture of all my different soft skills, all my different QA values and goals, and it is really easy to take this and expand out into something like a cover letter or a job interview.
Yeah, and I'll say with that too, that for the cover letter aspect of it, that is frequently going to be the most compelling thing that recruiters and hiring managers see, especially if you're entering an early in career position of it, because that's your opportunity to really talk about your passion and your love for not only the company, for the position itself, and how you can add value to the project, to the company with that, those things in mind for like player advocacy, for cross-discipline collaboration and everything that we've been talking about. That's your opportunity to really talk about it. And we have another resource here as well. Big credits go to Willem de Benthal and Kathleen Kelman for the resources that they were able to make for this, of having portfolio examples for QA and being able to see a job posting resource as well, so you can start to review some companies as well. So that way you have the opportunity to go into the next steps of seeing examples of working professionals in the industry and how you can start to apply for these places as well. And yeah.
Yeah, so I just want to outline this with the content of this talk has a lot of how the industry views our work. How does the industry view QA? And how our role is perceived, it allows them to value or devalue our work. And we know that the value is here. And working in the ways that we've talked about in this talk will show that our apparent value is in QA. We know it, we need everyone else to see it. So working on your skill progression, regardless of how much experience you have in the industry, you are adding value to the discipline. So we want to see all of this different things in your career progression. It is great for what we do. So the future of QA is in this room, and it's in the industry right now. So if you want to continue on your skill progression, the structure is here, and great QA professionals are here to help you go forward. So if this interests you, you are doing such important work for the discipline and for the perception of the industry.
And to wrap things up for the takeaways in this. So, number one, QA is a force multiplier. Hopefully we got to see a little bit of that in action for this. And it's not about just testing for the sake of just like finding bugs, but the quality of that as well. And for the last takeaway is that quality is an ownership for everyone that you work with, right? And for QA's unique position is that you get to shepherd that quality. You help to guide that quality for everyone by building out those quality systems. And one more time for everyone in the room, everyone in QA is a game developer. Thank you, Kate 6, so much.
Thank you, everyone.
We'll also be able to talk in the side rooms up ahead. Thank you all so much for attending this talk.
Yeah, if you have any questions, we'll be doing QA in the side rooms just because we're out of time. Thank you all for coming.